with this comp. They have the Flash Frost and Alistar.
Definitely, you're gonna see CLG just has a very, very strong level 1 team fight. You know, you couple Alistar with Cho'Gath, you're gonna have an AoE stun twice. I think both are knockups, so you can't really cleanse out of it. You can cleanse out the slow component, but CLG's level 1 is just pretty beastly at this point. And I don't see TSM fighting them head on. If it's gonna break out, it'd open pro with probably a couple of volleys and a right click and just backing out and just chunking them a little bit at a time. But if anybody gets hit, like, TSM's gonna have a man down.
Well, both teams running kind of defensive summoners. You know, we do have the clairvoyance from both wanting to be aware of where the enemy is. CLG setting up in the river here. We'll see whether they invade. They usually kind of move towards the top, but if TSM is coming in this direction, then, you know, there's always the potential for a quick kill. But as well, we have, you know, the heal top on Vladimir, recognizing he just wants to farm against Cho'Gath.
So, like, one thing TSM is expecting invade, so they dropped the ward at the tri-brush, expecting CLG to walk through. So they're not really going to hide in the forest. They're not looking for a fight. TSM just wants to start off the game normally without having a disadvantage and just farm through the early phases. And really, when it comes down to ganking, Udyr, I feel, should do a better job than Shyvana.
So we have seen a lot of split pushing from CLG. That's always, you know, something that they really favor. Hotshot taking the teleport, so it will allow a little bit more bot control as the game progresses. Do you think that that's just he doesn't expect to have any sort of kill potential against Vladimir? Because I would normally think you would go for an ignite with, you know, Cho'Gath versus Vlad. Or
if he had gone ignite, he would have a kill potential on Vlad. If there's nothing else affecting those two players. But since he doesn't have it, I feel like he's just going to try and farm and, you know, get big enough where he can just continually push and not be affected. I feel like he's just going to play Lone Island, Hotshot, GG, pushing continually with the teleport.
But right here, we see TSM. They're actually trying to catch CLG off guard while CLG has already split. They've sent Cho and Anivia down there. Here's Chaucer. He is going to see the team. And so we do have St. Vicious getting caught, and they are chasing him down. We do have the volley, and they are going to be able to pick this up. He's actually running. There it is. The critical for the first blood. Able to pick up the kill. And TSM, odd one, going to be able to get this red. CLG just completely, absolutely no clue. TSM understanding there's the early invasion there and the really aggressive play as a result.
So with CLG team comp, it's pretty obvious that they're gonna want to invade just because how strong it is. And TSM had known that. So they dropped the ward and it gave them an early enough warning that, all right, CLG is in here and they have already split apart. So it's not their full team. So TSM was able to collapse back onto Shyvana and pick up that kill.
And so now we actually see both teams expecting the swap. You know, definitely something that they like to do with Cho'Gath occasionally, but we will see the double lane bot for both of them. How do you think that'll have an impact on the game? Is it really just, you know, first to flinch results in a dragon for the other team?
I feel at this point, TSM has a little bit more control. They did get first blood, so I feel like from this point on, as long as they don't mess up, they should have dragon.
We do have the slow from Dyrus. He did use his pull, so odd one chasing him down here. Hotshot definitely on the wrong side. There's the stun underneath the tower. We have all that damage going off. Dyrus able to pick up the second kill. TSM off to a great start in the beginning of this game.
So what happened right there is Hotshot knew that he was going to get ganked. He felt his best route was to walk into tower. Had he gotten about 3 inches more, he'd be able to flash over the wall and walk out through blue side. But Dyrus had seen that, so he had flashed and stunned him under tower. Because when you take that path, you have about 2 seconds to walk through and take at least 1 tower hit. So it was a perfect timing on the stun by Dyrus.
And we actually have Hotshot teleporting back up, actually getting some great harass on Dyrus here, but since he's up against the tower, he should be able to heal it back up for the most part. We'll be fine to just continue farming in that lane. You know, teleport, because Cho's bot, it really doesn't have the kind of same significance that you usually see, but we actually see Odd One coming in here mid. We will have the snare from Reggie, could set up this gank extremely well, and then obviously with the Phoenix stance, with the red buff, that would definitely be a dead big fat LP there. So we'll see. He's kind of playing defensively, shying away from the top jungle because he recognizes Udyr's going to be coming from red. So what are your thoughts on, wow, brain freeze for a second. What are your thoughts on Anivia's play here? Do you just really think that recognizing the play from Reginald? Was he like tipping off to some degree, or did they just expect Udyr to be coming in for that aggressive early game?
GG is playing the general, I want to play safe at this point. When you're behind 2 kills, their jungler is going to be significantly stronger than his own. So he's definitely going to be playing passive for the most part, because at this point Udyr is involved in 2 kills already. So he's really farming. If he gets caught out of position, he knows he's going to die. And that's one thing he's not looking forward to. That's why he's playing so passive. It's not so much Reggie giving a tell. If you just look at GG's positioning in general, it's just very far back.
Yeah, he's definitely one of those more defensive players. Hotshot, because he's bottom lane, I was saying a second ago, the teleport isn't as meaningful as top lane, but because it has such a long cooldown, that 5-minute cooldown, is there any sort of weakness to him being forced to use the teleport so early in the lane?
I felt like the moment he used it wasn't too bad, because at that point there's no real global objectives on the map. And so having to use it so early doesn't hurt him as much, and actually it benefited him, because if he didn't have teleport, he would have had to walk all the way back, and he would have lost a lot of CS. And so, him dying so early, it was just a difference in EXP and gold, not losing out on a lot of farm.
And now top lane. Usually top lane is the most isolated of the lanes. We see a lot of aggressive ganks top lane because these 2 combos, they're both going top. Do you expect that maybe we'll see some tower dives from CLG, recognizing the aggression that they have and the chain CCs, or is Soraka still too safe of a pick with the double heal?
I feel like if St. Vicious can get farmed enough, you're going to be able to see some tower dives. But at this point, he's just passively farming. He understands that he's behind, so he's not making too many aggressive plays. Because when you make an aggressive play, you're putting yourself behind in farm. And he knows that his team is also behind, because TSM's up to kill, so his diving potential is lessened by that too. So I can foreseeably, I feel like Saint's going to farm until at least level 6 before he makes any real move.
And right now we're actually seeing that double lift, and Chaucer here, they're pushing extremely aggressively, trying to deny Ashe that farm. How do you think that's going to affect her viability as the game progresses? Because Ashe definitely doesn't have the highest base stats of any of the AD carries.
I think it's more of Ashe is playing very defensive. He doesn't want to get too far out, because in general, Ali Vayne is a very high threat, high pressure lane combo. So if he gets too far out, if there is a gank from jungle, it's going to be very dangerous. Right now, he is pushing lane.
We actually have a nice little dodge by Dyrus for a second there. The gank coming in, avoiding that rupture, just really effective play. And what you were saying? Back
to top, you see Vayne and Ali just very high pressure champions, and that's one thing Chowik's got to watch out for, because if he gets a little too far, if junglers go and gank, he's going to be putting himself in a lot of danger. So he is pushing lanes right now, because I think he's expecting to go back very soon.
How effective, will Cho be as this game progresses against Vladimir? Because he does have that high sustain, but once Vladimir starts getting some levels, once he starts getting that revolver, will he be able to shut down a little bit of Hotshot's farm, or is it just too strong?
I feel like Vlad should be able to win against Cho'Gath, especially with the advantage at this point. So as soon as Dyrus gets about 1700 hit point, he's at no real threat. He's at 1600 hit point right now. Once he gets his revolver, he should be at no real threat to Cho'Gath, because he's going to be able to live through the initial burst, and even when Shyvana ganks, he should be able to run away and use his heal to get back to safety. And I feel generally Vlad, I feel like he's going to scale better this game as well.
Well, it should be interesting to see. The Vlad AoE damage and sustain, do you think that's, just how is that going to affect Vayne as the game progresses? Is that a really strong matchup, having that, really strong hyper carry kind of champion?
The way I feel about Vlad is he's one of those champions where he goes in, he does a lot of damage, he drops really low and bait people. So he's going to be able to pull a lot of aggro, take a lot of pressure off his team, and then drop that aggro and force him to focus somebody else out. So especially with Vayne, when you're attacking a target, to do a lot of damage, you need to stack Silver Bolts. And as Vladimir, if you've taken only 2 hits, you can drop your pull and drop the last Silver Bolt and just really de-aggro that way.
Wow, we actually have a gank right down this mid lane. We have the flash snare from Reginald. There's going to be followed up with the stun, but the beautiful wall from Big Fat able to deny that, and Shyvana coming in, seeing if they're going to tower dive, maybe come in for that counter gank. So really effective play by CLG, continuing to push it into that mid game that they want. But as a result, Odd1 is going to come right down for this dragon, and because we only have the 1v1 bottom lane, and because Vladimir has a slight advantage, TSM, definitely will be able to take this. Shyvana not even going to try and contest it with Anivia.
Yeah, it's definitely a free dragon, especially with Anivia being so low. She doesn't really want to put herself in danger. And I think...
So a 2k gold advantage, or just over a 1k gold advantage for TSM. They, definitely have a pretty aggressive comp early on. It'll be interesting to see, when we start seeing some aggression from Chaos. But actually, right now we have Chowster going to headbutt him, not going for the full pulverize because the rest of TSM is coming. I'm wondering if Anivia had called that. So Reginald coming up, they are backing off. They definitely recognize the threat, but Double Lift very close to that snare will actually flash away. So Reginald just going to back off, and CLG will be safe once again in that lane.
I think they knew that Reggie was going to be able to snare her, and if he had cleansed that, he would have eaten an arrow right after. So, he's just playing better safe than sorry. That way, I felt like if he didn't flash that and he got snared by Reggie, he was very likely going to die, actually.
And so once again, we see Reginald trying to gank his own lane. Just going to come back, farm. At this point, what can you do to kind of stop Anivia from controlling this mid lane? Does she just have too much range and wave clearing capabilities, or maybe gank the blue a little bit?
The way I feel about Anivia is to control Anivia, you need to control her blue buff. Because what she can do is she can just continually press the lane, kill the entire creep wave really quickly, and let it reset at tower. And that's going to give her some time to go back, kill the Wraith, and then go press mid again, go back, kill wolves, and then go back to mid and press it again. She can clear it really, really quickly from afar, so it doesn't really put her in a lot of danger.
And once again, we have a gank bottom. Saint Vicious going to get some nice damage onto Dyrus here, but Dyrus was able to use that ghost, able to get out of there, had vision of Saint coming down, so just going to exchange a little bit of damage. Saint having that wriggle, so helps with jungle clearing capabilities, but we actually have Reginald coming in, so we'll see whether or not they go in for this, push under the tower. Hotshot a little bit too tanky, a little bit of damage exchange from Reginald, but probably just going to back off here. So Reginald, he's been extremely aggressive so far in the game, looking for ganks all over the map, trying to get his team an early advantage. Not really putting himself that far behind, but at the same time, there's always that threat. Wow, actually almost going in mid, and Saint Vicious going to be jumping into Reginald. This is actually turning around huge, so we're actually going to have a double kill here. Can Reginald turn on the Hotshot? We have the ultimate from Dyrus, so just that great burst damage. I was actually a little bit surprised. I thought Hotshot was just too tanky under that tower.
I actually felt like he could have died at any point, because had Dyrus dropped Hemo Plague, which he did, you put that on Hotshot, and then if Rise had just unloaded everything, that's actually a lot more damage, because one thing you gotta know is Hemo Plague amplifies your entire team's damage too, and Hotshot was at about half hit point through about two rotation of Rise's spell, so a little bit of damage from Vladimir, a little bit of damage from Reggie, and the Ignite on top of him. I felt like he was gonna die, so I was a little worried about him.
So I was actually going to say, do you think that if these ganks aren't successful, Reginald should really just be sitting mid and trying to control, or is it just that he's not going to be that effective against Anivia until he gets maybe a Banshees, so he really just wants to be able to pick up kills?
I feel like he's trying to help his entire team win the lane, so whenever there's an opportunity, if the wave is already
actually
pushed,
Reginald trading very well with Big Fat. The Flash Frost not coming out, it was down for a second there, but continue.
I was going to say that, I feel like Gigi does have a slight advantage against Rise just because her range is so much longer. If Reggie wants to press forward, she can wall him off and do damage that way. And he had a little bit of taste of that when he was playing Karthus. And so if there's an opportunity to roam, he wants to take advantage of that because, Anivia is a lot slower. If you press her tower and she clears it, you can get to places faster than she can, and you can get back faster than she can too. So it's not a bad idea to move her around the map.
And that actually kind of brings up a good point that we'll see later in this game. A lot of Team Solo Mid's team is actually pretty short range. Rise is a very short range caster. How is that going to affect them having to deal with the Anivia wall? later in the game.
Oh, Anivia is going to definitely be a huge problem for TSM.
But we actually have the snare underneath the tower, going to be taking the tower damage, and there the egg very close to going down. We had some AoE going on to Reginald. Can he pick it up? Still with the ignite, very close. Just one more spell, able to grab the kill. So Reginald able to grab Big Fat underneath the tower. Very, just awesome play.
If you look at the rebirth cooldown, GG was literally 0.2 seconds from coming out.
Yeah.
If Reggie's rotation had came up 0.3 seconds slower, I felt like they would have both killed each other upon resurrection.
So going back to it, how will TSM want to negotiate with the Anivia wall? Because I mean, not only is it going to give CLG control for taking objectives like Dragon, taking buffs, being able to wall off in the jungle. Anivia just so strong in the jungle. It's also going to give so much control in fights. How will they want to deal with that?
I feel like with Ashe, they should be able to make a pick as long as it doesn't hit Vayne or Alistar. If they can keep down Cho'Gath and he's not unstoppable like he normally is, they can actually make a pick on Cho'Gath as well. Because at this point, I feel like Hotshot isn't, as farm as he was in most of the other games. So, you can still make that happen. When Cho'Gath does get to beast mode status, you really don't want to waste your arrow on him.
Yeah, and we do see, everyone just kind of sitting back for a second. TSM with a 2K gold advantage at this point. Dragon will be up at about 16 minutes, so it's, should be up in about a half minute to a minute. So we'll have to see what kind of aggression we see from TSM as the levels get going. What is CLG's primary goal? Are they just really looking to get towards that mid-game where they can force fights and recognize that they have that team fight advantage over TSM?
I feel like CLG definitely has.
Oh, we have an arrow coming on to Big Fat, just barely missing. That would have definitely been a kill, sorry.
Yeah, his egg was down too, so, and Udyr was there waiting for it as well. So one thing I was talking about is, I feel like CLG does have a stronger late game. If it goes into late game without too much of a disparity in terms of farm and level, I feel like TSM is going to lose out on most of their team fights.
And so TSM grabbing another Dragon, the Rupture from Hotshot, just kind of, I don't know, lackadaisical kind of steal attempt, but there's definitely no options there. And so TSM definitely coming off to an early advantage. Top lane, Ashe is doing pretty well. We do have a slight advantage for Vayne, and Vayne definitely scales a little bit better. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of action we see from Doublelift as the game progresses, and whether or not we can see some aggression from Chaos picking people off.
I feel like at this point, if Chaos gets a little too far out, if he gets hit with one combo, he's gonna die. That's how much Vayne does right now. And Alistar does a lot of damage too. People underestimate how much damage he does.
And actually, we have another gank. Dyrus did see it. He does have that ward, so he will be safe. Once again, using his pool a little bit preemptively. I think he's just showing off there for the stream. But we do see Reginald coming up top lane, and along with Udyr, this is going to be a 4v2. Doublelift actually getting out of there, so we'll see whether or not they decide to push the tower. Almost stopping that, almost could have thrown the arrow, but I mean, they weren't pushed up, so it definitely would have been a hard gank underneath that tower. So what do you think? I mean, will TSM, they have a lot of short-range champions. That's going to make pushing difficult. At what point do you think they kind of start trying to roam a little bit, push down towers, get an early tower advantage for map control so they can pick off people more easily?
With TSM's current team comp, I don't think they can just group up and push. The way they're going to take towers is they need to force global objectives. They need to make picks.
But we do see the arrow coming off. Hotshot with the flash over that arrow. We will get another snare shortly. So Reginald still chasing him down. Going to get some damage. Oddwine's actually going to flash in for it. There's the stun. The Rupture going off. And then Reginald flashing as well. Able to pick up the kill. And in the meantime, we actually see CLG is pushing this mid lane extremely aggressively. They recognize there's 4 people top. So maybe even able to pick up a tower here. Vayne and Chouster bottom pushing that lane as well. So really aggressive pushing from CLG all around the map. And this tower is actually very close to going down. They won't be able to get it here, but the next push that they have, that's definitely going to give them some great map control throughout this game. So what are your thoughts on TSM? They had the kill top Hotshot, just really fantastic play there, but then not pushing down the tower immediately. Do you think that they needed to take that kind of control, or maybe only send one mid, or did they all need to go mid in case all of CLG was grouping?
I feel like that was a fine play, because right now what TSM needs to do is they need to make big plays. That's the type of team comp they have. If they're not going to make big plays and let things go into mid-late game with an even...
Oh, Saint Vicious, Saint Vicious, what are you doing? Walking into the snare from from Reginald. He is actually going to get out of there with the Dragon. The wall from Anivia going to turn onto Odd1, and here's the Rupture, is going to hit. Odd1 going to go down. So a huge turnaround from CLG. I was kind of wondering whether or not, we'd see TSM trying to bait that Baron. They don't really have the best Baron team in this game, particularly without Dyrus. They don't really have a lot of damage. So do you think that kind of factors into how much of a threat they can, provide to CLG and draw them out of position because they don't have that huge Baron threat?
I feel like they do.
Okay.
Definitely it's not that fast. It's not going to be as fast as CLG, but they are significantly ahead at this point. So when you're 4 kills ahead, 2 dragons ahead, you're going to do a lot more damage. And so I feel like Baron for them is more of a bait for CLG, because like one thing I was talking about is TSM, it's going to be very, very hard for them to push on CLG. So I can see them using Baron to force CLG to group up for team fights later on in the game.
Well, we do see Hotshot kind of moving back and forth between the lanes. Let me see, his teleport is down for about another 3 minutes. So, it is a long cooldown. Maybe starting a split push as the game progresses. Maybe we'll see those, aggressive Barons coming out. We've been seeing them the entire tournament. And with Double Lift on Vayne, with Saint Vicious and Shyvana, there's definitely a lot of Baron potential from, CLG as well, if they can draw TSM out of position. That's definitely the goal with the split push. Do you think that might be something we'll be seeing shortly? But actually, we see Double Lift chasing down Chaos, going to be dealing a lot of damage, and Hotshot's here as well. There is Special for the support, but they will be able to back out of there. So do you think that's something we'll start to see from CLG, or are they primarily just going to sit back, allow TSM to make the moves until the mid-game happens?
I feel like all CLG needs to do to win this one is, all they need to do is farm, and when they get farmed enough, they can just, I feel like they can be behind in farm and still win team fights with the type of team comp they have. In terms of picking people off, I feel TSM has a better comp, but if TSM is unable to make big moves in the next 5-10 minutes, I feel like they're just going to lose the advantage that they have right now, and it's going to start swinging into CLG's favor.
So you think 5 to 10 minutes, that's like the timeline where, CLG just becomes this uber powerful comp. We've seen, the carrying potential from Vayne. Is that, what TSM's thinking right now, that clock ticking in their heads?
In about 5 or 10 minutes, you're going to definitely see a swing. I wouldn't be surprised if the kill gap is going to close and the objective gap is going to close, just because CLG just has a stronger team comp. Not necessarily like earlier mid-team comp, but definitely late game. And so when it gets to that point or approaches that point, CLG is going to be able to just beat TSM, even behind in gold, behind in objectives.
Oh, but we do have the ward spotting Chaucer here. We'll see whether or not Odd1 gets out of there. He did get that Oracles for that map control. He is going to be able to get out of there, but this is going to be a tower for CLG. And yeah, just, successfully pushing down these towers, definitely working to their advantage. I was kind of, wondering whether or not he would back up in time. It was pretty close to Alistar being able to get that combo on him. But we'll have to see what CLG can kind of do. I definitely, the Oracle is definitely a smart decision from Odd1. Will allow them to get that map control because they recognize that CLG is going to have a lot of wards trying to defend against the initiation from TSM.
Definitely, like one thing you got to keep in mind is when another team is stronger than you, in terms of team fighting, you got to outposition them if you're going to win the team fight. You got to find the perfect timing to engage when they're not ready, when they're split, and or they're just not expecting it, where you can give 1 or 2 people.
So we do have another Dragon going down for TSM. CLG just pretty comfortable with it. I mean, once again, they do have great ward coverage all over the map. They know where TSM is at all times, so they can sit there very comfortably split push, be aggressive with pushing these towers as we've seen, and then just continue to farm, push it more and more into that late game, like we said, where it's their favor. I don't know, I'm kind of curious, what TSM is going to be doing to try and draw CLG out of position, like we've been talking about. They don't really, like we said earlier, because of how strong they are, they can go for that Baron. Do you think that, is that something we'll be seeing shortly, where they try baiting in Baron, trying to force that, small skirmish kind of fight, or is CLG just too strong even in team fights now, where they could just send Hotshot bottom, split push, and then still win a fight with the Hotshot teleport?
I think it's getting closer. I said in like 5-10 minutes, about 3 minutes ago. It's approaching that point where if TSM wants to bait Baron, they need to absolutely catch 1 or 2 people before their entire team can catch up. Just because one thing you gotta be concerned about is Cho'Gath has his ultimate, so if you start doing Baron, he can go in and can steal it. And if you're low enough, any single person from baiting Baron, he can go in and can give that person too. So definitely ward coverage is very, very important for TSM right now, especially clearing out the enemy's ward.
And so we are seeing TSM sitting mid, trying to kind of see if they have a good position. I'm kind of curious. TSM, it seems like, you know, I don't know if they're unsure of, you know, who to go after, what objectives to push, or if they're just waiting for more objectives to come off. We do have the blue buff spawning here, so Anivia going to be able to get that. That's definitely going to be huge for team fight control. What is running through TSM's head right now? Like, what are their thoughts sitting mid lane?
One thing that they do know is they do know that CLG is a stronger late game comp, so they've been trying to make moves the entire game.
Right.
That's probably why you've seen Reggie moving top, moving bottom, and so they've been trying to make those big plays throughout the entire game. It was very, very effective in the first maybe 10-15 minutes, but it hasn't really yielded anything in the last 5 or 6 minutes. So one thing that you got to continually look out for as CSM is you got to look for those kill opportunities where you can take out 1 or 2 players, then take towers and or Baron.
Yeah, and you see, I mean, TSM, they clearly want to engage to some extent, but there's not really any targets, though we do see St. Vicious here going to be out of position. Reginald and Odd1 coming in for him. He can ult over this wall, so we'll see whether he does that. There's the snare, so lots of damage coming off real quick. Odd1 coming, chasing him down. There's the exhaust, so St. Vicious very close to getting off, but the snare from Reginald is going to be able to take him down. There is a kill for TSM. 1 more hit, able to do it. In the meantime, we do see Hotshot pushing down this top tower, and the rest of TSM kind of ganking mid, but or sorry, just hanging out mid. But a successful gank for TSM. I don't know, I'm kind of surprised with how great the ward coverage has been from CLG so far to see Hotshot, or sorry, St. Vicious so far up without any ward coverage around that blue area.
I think at this point, I feel CLG just needs to prolong the game as long as they're pushing lanes, taking tower, and farming, they can team fight. Ooh, this could be really bad for TSM actually. They can hold it off 4v5. Especially if Anivia gets a good wall
off. There is actually the ult onto Hotshot. He's going to take a lot of damage, but that's who they want to be taking damage. Double Lift coming into this ult now. We do have the wall from Big Fat LP. A lot of damage going on to Double Lift. He's very close to going down, and there's Dyrus chasing him down. Does have the ult. Very close to taking down Double Lift. In the meantime, we do see Hotshot going down in that top lane. Dyrus still chasing him off, but now we have TSM in perfect position to take down Chouster maybe. No, the wall off from Anivia just stuttering them for a second, but TSM maybe go after Baron now. They did take down Hotshot. Double Lift is extremely low. Double Lift currently, he does have Bloodthirster though, so actually coming straight down this mid lane, they're not even going to defend this Baron currently. He's actually already full from that Bloodthirster, so TSM going after this Baron, and CLG definitely going to try and stall while Double Lift is coming back.
This can be very, very dangerous for TSM right now. What they need to know is
the snare. Chouster almost going down, almost losing that Oracles. Everyone's kind of low for CLG. We see actually a lot of damage going out to Double Lift. Reginald chasing him down, able to pick up Double Lift, and there it goes. St. Vicious able to grab the kill onto Reginald, but the rest of TSM is good. They're turning back, and here's the teleport in from Hotshot. Can he get the rupture? The wall off from CLG. There it is. Dyrus very close to going down, able to pick up the kill on St. Vicious though. And so now we have Chaos turning back onto Hotshot. There's the Flash Rust going to turn him around. CLG in a decent position, able to stop this Baron, but everyone from TSM still alive except for Reginald, and they're actually pretty low now. It's going to be interesting. They are coming back here. Can we get it? There's the arrow actually missing, and the rupture from Hotshot going to be able to stall out once again. Not going to be able to get this Baron for TSM, and so we will see a reset, but very close, like one kill more for TSM, and all of a sudden they have Baron. We're looking at a completely different game here.
My heart skipped a beat right there. I was like, oh my god, Chalix's arrow's up. If this land, those two are dead, they can go back, heal, force another Baron fight, and just continually funnel CLG into Baron and force him to stop and picking up kills continually. Because that's exactly what TSM needs to do. They don't want to fight an even fight. And so to force CLG to continually defend it and pick off people continually was exactly what TSM needed to do. And if that arrow had hit, that would have been so much more pressure on CLG to just keep on funneling, keep on preventing Baron from being taken.
And that's something, this entire tournament, all these double-lift games we've seen as Vayne, he's just been so fantastic. His control is incredible. He's able to keep himself alive through the most precarious of fights, but he is a short-range champion, and so Reginald, you know, definitely at a really strong point right now, has that Frozen Heart, almost done the Banshee's Veil, able to get right up into double-lift's face, prevent him from dealing the damage that he needs. So just really effective play. He did go down, but completely controlling the fight for TSM along with the rest of his team.
Definitely. So right now, TSM is just going to continuously bait this Baron. They want to fight, but they want to also make a pick. So they're gauging their distance and position where they can get a favorable engage.
And so we did have a minion taking down the turret bottom. So TSM, you see they're not going for Baron that aggressively. They know that, you know, if they're caught in that wall, Anivia just walling them in there, all that AoE damage, if they're able to protect Vayne, then that's really not the fight that they want. So trying to kind of come out, see if they can maybe bait some people out from CLG, see if they can force that good fight. We do have the arrows coming off, the volleys, the flash rush coming here. Actually, some great damage onto St. Vicious. They're going to back off though. Once again, double lift is the target they want, and his cleanse is actually going to be up shortly. It wasn't up in that last fight. So with that cleanse, how do you think, you know, that just completely changes the dynamic of the fight?
Definitely with cleanse, that means that he can't get picked off by Reggie's snare. He can't get picked off by arrow.
Oh, but we actually have the arrow onto Big Fat and the flash in from Reginald. Big Fat's going down extremely quickly. He had no egg. St. Vicious going down, and now we have the chase onto double lift. Will they be able to get him? We do have the stun, the cleanse, and the snare. TSM able to pick it off, and now they're coming back for Baron. They will be able to take this Baron along with that blue, denying Anivia the blue. She does have both an Archangels and a Rod of Ages right now, so blue not as significant. However, the cooldown reduction does hurt, and this Baron is absolutely huge for TSM.
Very, very big. This is going to allow them to push down towers, which they really, really need. Just innately, their team comp is not good at pushing against CLG. So with this Baron buff and the gold and kill advantage, they're going to be able to start taking towers, and that's exactly what they need to do.
And so now, just, I mean, fantastic play the entire game from TSM. They were down that last series 2-0 to CLG. CLG just looking so, you know, strong. It was a very close matchup, but even so, TSM couldn't kind of get a foothold in that game. And here we just see them kind of running away with it early. They do recognize that, you know, CLG still has that really aggressive comp, but the aggressive play from TSM has definitely been working their favor. They'll be able to steal this red from Vayne. They'll be able to go after that dragon. And actually, we have the snare onto Hotshot. I don't think they're going to get after him, so yeah, we'll let him back off. Definitely want to save those Ash arrows. It will be up shortly for another pick off, maybe on Vayne, now that that cleanse is gone once again.
So one thing I was talking about at the beginning, when you asked, who does TSM want to target with Ash's arrow? And when he hit Anivia, I was very, very excited for them because that's a perfect target to hit. She was completely separated by everybody, and there's really nobody to protect her. And having been able to kill Anivia instantly definitely won them that team fight, because having a team fight in the middle of the enemy jungle is just just a very, very bad idea if it was an even just face-off, because you can wall off 2 or 3 people, layer ultimate, and split the rest of the team and just fight that way.
Oh, and now we actually, Dyrus just going to skip over. He wants that farm, definitely significant. So we have TSM coming down for this dragon. What is CLG's primary goal? We've been talking about it the entire game. They want to push to late game. Do they just hold off and try and sit back? They do have great wave clearing capabilities with Anivian and Cho to try and stall.
I feel like CLG does want to split push. If Vayne split push, you can kill Ash 1-on-1. If Cho'Gath split push, he's going to be able to give everybody else a lot of trouble too. So at this point, I feel like CLG just wants to make the game last very, very long, to the point where that gold gap that TSM has just isn't as big. Because one thing you think about, 5,000 gold in 20 minutes, it's not the same as 5,000 gold in 40 minutes. So as the game progresses, as long as they don't fall further behind, I feel like CLG is going to be able to get back into this.
Yeah, and like you said, we do see St. Vicious pushing this top lane. They're keeping all the lanes pushed so that they can have a little bit more vision of TSM. They recognize when they're going to be trying to come in. They don't have those great pot shots against the towers, but at the same time, the split push does leave them a little bit more vulnerable to the initiation from TSM if they all group mid. I'm kind of curious, what is TSM going to be looking to do? Because they have short-range champions, so even though they're really strong, it feels like it could be extremely difficult for them to push on CLG right now.
Exactly. This is TSM's predicament, right? If Vayne pushes and TSM sends any champion but Rise, Vayne's going to be able to kill them. So Vayne's going to be able to free farm bot and pressure it. If TSM groups up as 5 and press mid, Anivia is going to be able to stop that push. So it allows, CLG's got that type of team comp that allows them to split push without getting punished too hard. So the way TSM's gonna have to go about this is they have to land a pick with Chaox's arrow. So if Chaox can land a great arrow on Anivia under tower, they can dive her, give her, and then take tower afterwards.
Almost a nice wall off there from Big Fat. TSM, coming down this mid lane. We do see Vayne, actually after that aggressive push, coming up again. Vladimir able to take that top tower, so continuing with that pressure. But Vayne, maybe thinking that we're going to see a fight a little bit. The bot lane is pushing for TSM, so it will push back shortly. But once again, CLG with that wave clearing potential, TSM finding it a little bit difficult for them to grab someone underneath these towers. So we actually see TSM now moving towards this top lane. Is that what they need to do? They need to keep on just transitioning top and mid and bot, push all of the lanes to try and pull CLG out of position?
So what TSM cannot do is they can't 5v5 fight under tower. So what they need to do is they need to just continually transition from top to bottom to mid and just try and get in as much free damage as they can and then top off. They do have Soraka, so what they can do is just send somebody in to tank the tower, deal maybe 10-20%, switch to another lane, deal 10-20%, switch over and over until they can actually chip down that tower low enough where they can give it and then engage under tower.
Well, TSM's Baron is actually down. Once again, CLG just holding him off a little bit. We saw how much damage Reginald still has at this point, taking Hotshot below half health really quickly. And so Reginald actually coming down. There's the arrow on Hotshot. They're actually engaging onto Hotshot. St. Vicious right in the middle of this team. Dyrus chasing him out. And so that AoE from Dyrus able to just scare CLG away from that tower. And this is going to result in a tower for TSM.
So TSM saw that Vayne was pushing bottom and they knew that was a 5v4 fight. So they felt if they can get a pick off, that would have been a free tower, and then Vayne would have taken time to get back, and that could have potentially been a free inhib.
And so we see, actually, we have the odd one walled off here a little bit, but CLG a little bit hesitant to come in. Soraka with those heals, with that support, definitely allows them to sustain a little bit. But in the meantime, Doublelift aggressively pushing down this bottom lane. He knows that he has the great wave clearing potential for his team, so he's able to take that second turret. And now TSM has to be faced with the fact that they either need a hard engage or they need to get back. And Saint trying to stall them a little bit there. So we actually have Reginald coming in. This actually might be a pretty good engage for them. We have Hotshot knocking him over the wall. Chaos right out in position. St. Vicious going to be dealing a lot of damage to him, but going down extremely quickly. We have Dyrus chasing after him. Here's the snare onto Hotshot. Hotshot's going to go down. St. Vicious almost going down. We will have the arrow up from Ash very shortly. In the meantime, we actually have the tower going down, and Odd1 chasing after Doublelift, but Doublelift able to pick up the kill, and now Doublelift is going to be able to take down that inhibitor. And so we have the push, almost working for TSM, but they're going to back out now. Doublelift almost certainly going to get this. We have the arrow from Ash. Will they engage onto Big Fat? They're actually going for the blue right now, but Reginald's still in there. He is going to recall, so they are going to back, and this inhibitor for Doublelift definitely going to stall the game. Definitely not what TSM wants to see at this point in time.
So here's TSM's predicament. They have a comp where they cannot push. So even if they're stronger in team fights, they cannot press forward. So what CLG continually do is just keep on sending Vayne to split push. So because Vayne can keep on split pushing, there's no real answer to her on TSM. TSM is forced to either force a fight and play very, very aggressive and make things happen. And if that fails, it's going to put CLG back on the map. And if it's successful, and if Anivia doesn't die, Anivia should be able to hold long enough where his team's going to be able to get back and reinforce.
And at the same time, we look at how strong all of these characters are. Dyrus with almost 300 CS, Vayne with over 300 CS. We just, great farm from all of these players. And so as a result, we're kind of getting to that point in the game where either team, if they get any pickoffs, they can both just rush the base. We already have the inhibitor down for TSM, but then, CLG, their base is, kind of open once again. And so TSM actually pressuring this Baron once again, seeing if they can pull CLG out of position here. So what are your thoughts as far as, this Baron? Like, will TSM be able to be successful here, or is CLG just too strong?
This is very dangerous for TSM right now. It's actually not as dangerous. That wall is down. I felt like if that wall walled off TSM.
Wow, but we actually have the arrow once again onto Hotshot. He's taking a lot of damage, going down extremely quickly. Dyrus in the middle of the team, getting onto Doublelift now. Chowster's going to go down as well. So TSM kind of clearing this up. Doublelift still has his damage though. Odd1 trying to chase him down. We do have Doublelift chasing, but in the meantime, we have St. Vicious on the backside. He is going to be fine, but the whole of TSM is very low. There's the Flash Frost from Anivia. We have Reginald trying to chase him down, trying to pick him up, but St. Vicious a little bit too fast. But the rest of CLG is definitely too high. They are actually going to try and bait this Baron one more time. They definitely have the damage. They definitely have the survivability with that double Woda. So we'll see whether or not they can pull it in. Almost getting the slow onto St. Vicious. There it is, the slow. Will we get the Reginald snare? There's the wall off, but Reginald turning back in. There is the kill onto Shyvana. St. Vicious going down, and now TSM, they can go after this Baron. There is the Baron going down. TSM, another Baron, the second one this game, and they will be able to push. But in the meantime, we have bot pushing for CLG, mid as well, because of all that aggression, you know, that CLG had taking that inhibitor earlier.
So that's exactly what TSM needs to do. So basically, I feel like CLG doesn't need to team fight, and really they can just keep on split pushing all day. However, when there's a major global objective like Baron, you know, the temptation is you need to stop the other team, because if they get it, they're going to have the pushing power to start taking down our towers. So it's just basically back to the same predicament CLG was at earlier when TSM has Baron buff.
And it just goes to how strong TSM is right now. It seems like, I mean, CLG, they just have such a ridiculous team fighting comp. It's been so effective throughout this tournament, the past couple of matches we've seen. But TSM just, you know, bulldozing through them. They don't even care. They're able to pick up the kills on Hotshot. Hotshot, you know, the Uber tank, he's like, yeah, sure, use your abilities on me. TSM's like, fine, we will, and we're still going to win that fight. Able to, you know, just be extremely aggressive there. We'll see whether or not they start pushing. Once again, we had seen, you know, the split push from CLG kind of negating TSM's efforts. Do you think that it might be more effective this time? Can TSM just, you know, bulldoze through the towers because of how strong they are at this point? Or is, you know, it just too much of a threat from the AoE that CLG has?
The thing with CLG's comp is every time TSM's gonna want to fight them, they can clear all the minions. So they're not just fighting 5v5, they're fighting 5v5 under a tower. And with the addition of Anivia's walls, most likely going to be 3v5 or 2v5 under tower, because she's able to split half the team off. So it's still going to be very, very hard for TSM to push throughout the game. So just throughout the entire game, I feel, you know, it's TSM's job to find a pick, just continually to ward really well. If that pick doesn't happen, they're not going to be able to push.
And so we do see TSM kind of pressuring mid a little bit. Odd1 is going to sit back. TSM all kind of just comfortable in this mid lane. They're definitely looking for their opportunities. Let me see if anyone has blue buff. I believe blue buff for CLG should be spawning shortly. So, you know, we'll see if they pressure that. It's really not as key at this point in the game. Actually, you know, it would give the cooldown reduction for Anivia, so that's always a potential target for TSM. What can TSM do to try and pull CLG out of position here? You know, just, is it that they need to wait for the inhibitor up? Do they need to push mid, push bottom, just pull CLG out of position?
They, like I was talking about earlier, they need to continually rotate and do as much damage as they can. This is actually a perfect positioning. CLG is really, really split, so they're getting free damage and they're not going to be able to assist the tower in time. So what they need to do is just get into the situation that they were just in. Find a time and a place where CLG isn't next to the tower, do as much damage as they can, and then back out and try and rotate.
Well, we definitely see, you know, they will need to back off for a second here. They do have their inhibitor up, but we have 2 waves left of the super minions, so Odd1 going over to clear that. Then, you know, with their inhibitors, with their lanes all pushing, they can, you know, start pushing once again. That's definitely key. I don't know, I'm sitting here, it's such a close game. TSM just has such fantastic positioning, such fantastic, you know, aggressive play throughout the game, but it always feels like CLG just has this dominant force, you know, this impending doom waiting on the horizon, waiting to pick off TSM if the game goes on too long, and because they can just stall the game so effectively, I'm wondering, you know, what TSM is going to do in order to win this, and whether or not they just need to decide to fight under tower. They do have plenty of tanking capabilities. You know, Udyr could tank the tower without taking that much damage, but even so, that would be tough.
It's going to come to the point where if one team gets one good team fight, the game's going to end. And when it gets to that point, I feel TSM has a better kickoff comp. With Ash's arrow, with Rise's snare, they're going to be able to pick off one or two people and then press that advantage. So
we do have CLG kind of split here. TSM not all groups, so they won't go in on it.
Definitely, if it does get to that late in the game and a team fight breaks out with no real advantage, no real good initiation, I feel CLG can win.
Oh, but there's the arrow. It is actually going to hit Shyvana, so not the Anivia target that they wanted, but even so, we'll get some nice damage. Actually, TSM just going to back off on it. We'll see whether or not they can come over to Doublelift. He should be fine here, but they're all moving down into position. Doublelift does have that Banshees. Probably doesn't have enough time to recall now. Actually, will have enough time. TSM not going to push it that aggressively. So TSM, again, you know, they can't get the pickoffs that they need because all of CLG is so tanky, because, you know, Alistar obviously is going to have his cleanse. Cho'Gath, we've seen them just going in for Cho'Gath, but not getting those effective initiations that they need and can't push down the towers. I don't know, we'll have to see. You know, like you said, it is at that point basically where either team, one fight wins the game.
So, you know, Ash's arrow is on a 72-second cooldown at this point. So every 72 seconds, you're going to see TSM want to make a big play. As soon as Ash's arrow is up, they're going to look for one person, try and hit them with the arrow, pick them off, and then look for a tower. And that's exactly what they need to do for the rest of the game.
Doublelift just barely getting off that recall just in time. TSM closing in on him. That would have been devastating to lose, you know, all of the damage that Doublelift brings to the table. Top is pushing in the meantime. Shyvana is moving up there. TSM still kind of grouped. We'll see whether or not Shyvana, yes, Shyvana is moving towards that top lane to continue that split pushing strategy that has worked for CLG so far. And we'll see whether or not TSM kind of goes in on one of these champions here. You know, even with how tanky Cho'Gath is, if we have a 5v4 situation, you know, we might see them going in on it. But Shyvana coming up here, able to get the second turret for CLG, and actually Dyrus going to be coming up here, Ash as well, so maybe we'll get an engage onto St. Vicious. We do have the exhaust going off onto Dyrus. He's actually taking a lot of damage, but there's the arrow, and then the dive from St. Vicious, just barely avoiding it. Great awareness there. Can Chaos get in? Yes, there is the slow with the flash. He's chasing him down. In the meantime, we do see bottom. I'll turn there in a second. The kill's going to be going off. Doublelift is being chased by Reginald and the odd one, so actually the flash in from Reginald is going to be able to pick this off. Doublelift a little bit too fast. Can they pick him down? He is almost certainly going to go down. So that's going to be 2 kills for CLG. The knockback from Odd One. But I guess Soraka's just going to be able to pick up this kill. We have the AP Soraka now almost. And here he is. Doublelift going down. 2 kills for CLG. And now, obviously, with those long respawn timers, they can push down the one of these lanes. We'll see, you know, how much damage they're going to do on CLG.
At this point, TSM is probably going to want to push tower. Baron is very, very easy. Basically, they're going to use Baron as a bait to force CLG to fight. So anytime when they can get a pick, Baron is not #1 priority. Taking towers is always going to be #1 for TSM, just because of how hard it is to take tower.
But here we have a little bit of an engage, and there's the slow from Chaos. They will just back him off for a second. The Anivia wall stopping that, but they will get this turret and then turn onto the inhibitor. They have plenty of time to get it and then recall, so they can pressure that Baron once again. They are actually just going to transition top and drop this second turret, see if they can get the second inhibitor. They have 20 seconds left on Doublelift, so they should be able to do it. Odd One, tanky enough, he doesn't have to worry about that. We have some damage from Big Fat and Hotshot, but it's just not enough, trying to stall them for a second there. And so we have the second inhibitor going to go down in a second for TSM. Really effective play. Now the key is, can they defend the Baron? Because Doublelift is up now. They do have the 2 inhibitors push, but CLG has all 3 lanes pushing. Actually, mid's not, but you know, bot and top are pushing for CLG currently, even despite those inhibitors. So we'll see whether or not we have the engage at this Baron.
I feel like TSM isn't at full, so if they start Baron and get engaged on it, can be very, very bad. And I think they know that, so what they want to do is they just want to hold them off and not let them do Baron. If they can hold it off long enough, Super Creeps is going to be able to press into CLG's base, and it can be a very, very positive fight for TSM.
But CLG, again, is extremely tanky. TSM is a little bit low, so they will have the fight. There's the arrow on the Hotshot. Dyrus right in the middle of the team, uses the Zhonya, so baiting it out there. St. Vicious jumping into him, going down extremely quickly, and Dyrus pulling in the middle of the team. Chowster very close to going down, will go down, and now the rest of the team is coming. We do have Dyrus going down, but Doublelift in the middle of them. 2 short range is going to go down, so 2 inhibitors down. Now they win the fight. TSM pushing down mid. This is going to be it. So there we go, TSM going to be able to take the second game. We'll see whether or not we can have, that kind of miraculous stall from CLG. They do have great wave clearing capabilities, but Reginald going to be able to pick off Hotshot. He doesn't have his flash up, so he's not going to get him, but Ottawa has the stun, so actually just going to turn straight onto the turrets. They don't care. TSM knows they have it in the bag. TSM winning game 1 of the series against CLG, and we will go into game 2. We'll see whether or not they can pull it off. Just there's the teleport from Hotshot.
I think he has an understanding that it's over, so he just did that for fun.
But aggressive play from TSM, the first Ashe we've seen of the tournament.
Definitely.
It seemed, CLG, they had this tanky comp. They had all these sustained champions. They're like, hey, who are you going to Ashe in this team? TSM, they didn't even care.
Yeah.
They were fine with engaging on Hotshot. All of those fights, able to just get those hard engages. We see Dyrus there with his pillow once again, always a favorite. But I don't know, just really effective, aggressive play. And it all started with